of the run of it lately is the whole concept of being authentic and all the reasons why I should or I shouldn't. And essentially, what I'm going to put this into one little bundle for you and say, okay, here's what the cultural teaching is, and that is that you are fundamentally flawed. There is something wrong with you. You're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too smart, you're too dumb, you're four eyes, you're freckle face, you come from a different country, your skin's a different colour. There's something wrong with you. Now, nobody actually says that unless they're actually into full-on bullying. But the subtle messages in our culture are that somehow or other there's something wrong with you because, if everything was okay, then you wouldn't feel like it didn't fit so much. We mostly feel like we're flawed because we don't fit so well because we're not like everybody else. The trouble is there isn't anybody to be like. There's no standard, model of how we should be. So most people, because they are not the most brilliant person in the world, or they're not the best sporting person in the world, or their hair's the wrong colour, or it's too frizzy, or it's not frizzy enough, or whatever it is, feel like there's something wrong with them. The problem with that is what it does, it makes us feel like we should be different. So if my hair's too frizzy, I'm going to spend a long time trying to straighten it out. And I can tell you when I was younger, my hair was long and curly. And me and my sister used to get together with the iron and the ironing board, and I'd be on my knees with my hair on the ironing board. She'd be ironing it to make it go flat so that I could go out because I felt like I was a much more acceptable person if my hair wasn't so curly. Ridiculous concept, but there you have it. Not untypical for a 15-year-old. So I feel like this superficial thing about me is actually a fundamental flaw, that I'm less acceptable as a human being because my hair is, the wrong kind of shape or colour or whatever it is. So what happens is we get into presenting to the public uh, a version of us that we think is more acceptable. And that might mean that when somebody cracks a joke and I've got no idea what's going on, that I laugh along with everybody else, acting as if I knew what was happening. Because I figure if I say I don't get it, that points out this kind of fundamental shortcoming of mine that is going to go towards, like, reinforcing the whole idea that me, as I am, isn't acceptable or isn't good enough or isn't going to be drawn into the crowd and accepted as one of us, so to speak. So when I present this different version of myself, whether it's with my hair straightened out or whether it's that I go and build a muscular body or whether I go and study something that I can appear intelligent or that I put glasses on so that I think that I look intelligent, whatever's going on, however I modify myself in this pursuit of being more acceptable, people read us and their alarm bells go off. So when I'm not fully me, people's alarm bells go off, but they don't know what's going on. It's kind of like they've got radar and it's kind of going like, beep, beep, this dude's not okay. I'm sure you've had that experience. You've met someone who looked okay, sounded okay, but something about them just rankled with you. I'm saying it's probably they're not being authentically themselves. They are displaying a version of themselves that they think is more acceptable. And so they might be acting like really smart or acting like really dumb or being the life of the party or some role that they're actually quite familiar with and play quite a lot. But the whole idea of it is they think that makes them more acceptable, but our radar's going off going, I don't know what it is. I cannot tell you why I don't like this person, but I just don't. On other occasions, we come across people who don't make sense at all. We just like them. So when people are being themselves, our radar does not go off. So what we notice is when the radar does go off, when people's radar go off, they have one of two reactions. And the first one is they'll go straight into rejection. That is, well, I don't like them. I don't want anything to do with them. Don't come near me. Don't talk to me. I'm not interested. The other reaction is that they can go, I don't know what's going on with this person. They start to project their own fears and their own worries onto you. In other words, there's two distinct reactions: rejection or projection. Rejection simply means wipe you. Projection means I'm going to take all of my fears and worries and assume that you've got them and that you are suffering from them and you're doing whatever it is that I hate most about myself. And so if what I hate most about myself is I yell at the kids, I'm going to assume that you yell most at your kids because that's what's in my mind, and I assume that's what in yours because I can't read you authentically. If we go down the rejection path, what happens there is that that's fuel for you to keep on modifying your behavior, because you go, okay, so I was like this, which is not really authentic, but I was rejected, so I've got to find another version. So it fuels the whole idea that I need to keep finding new and different versions of myself until I become acceptable enough. So it's a disaster pathway. The other pathway, the projection pathway, is equally as bad because we get confused, because what happens is I'm behaving in a certain way, but your responses are that don't coalesce with that. They're not accurate. They're not a reflection of that, because the projection is coming. And so I get confused. And the consequence of being confused is I start thinking people are strange, that they respond differently to me. It's unusual that they should behave like that. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's the whole world is a little bit strange. And you won't have to go too far before you find someone who says, I hate the world. I don't like people. I don't even go outside of my house. In fact, I was talking to a client last week who's perfected the art of getting everything delivered so that he doesn't have to go outside his own house. He thinks that that's brilliant. He thinks that he's a genius for figuring out that everybody's an idiot and that he's fine. He kind of secretly admits that he's got an issue, but he's got an issue with everybody being an idiot. He doesn't actually think that he's got a problem. What he says is, well, what I have to do is I have to understand that I need a different strategy with everybody being an idiot, rather than realise he's wrong about everybody being an idiot. So he's kind of got his wires crossed, but that's nevertheless the kind of reaction that we get into. So what is the only option that's available to you? Well, it boils down to this. We have to, you and me, individually, I'll do mine, you do yours, we have to risk rejection. Why? Well, let's face the facts. It's happening anyway. The inauthentic version of you that you present to the public creates some rejection anyway. So we're getting rejection anyway. You might as well get rejection at a fundamental level rather than at the superficial projection level, because that way you'll get to deal with it. That way you'll get to overcome it. That way you can at least have the self-respect of saying, I was rejected for being me instead of I was rejected for the portrayal that I gave. Now, some people will tell you that that's better because, if I get rejected for my portrayal, that's not so deep. It's more superficial. I can tell myself, well, they didn't reject the real me. They rejected the person that I thought I was, which was a play act by me. I'm going to suggest to you that that's just hornswoggle, that what you really need to do is understand that when you risk rejection, you back yourself. What you're saying is, I'm worth standing up for. Being the real me is worth it. All of that can be summarised with one simple saying that you can kind of pretty well get on with it and put into your life straight away. It boils down to this. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Give that a run.